And today we're going to be talking about harnessing the power of bots and commands in Zoho Cliq, and a little bit of a sneak peek. I'm going to talk about a little bit more than just these two things, because within Cliq itself, there are a lot of different tools that we have available. Cliq, it's not just a collaboration tool. We can do a lot with it, and I work on the creator team specifically, but more and more as I build tools and build bots within Cliq, I'm realizing how powerful it can be, especially with integrating into the other apps that we have. A quick little agenda as we go through this. I'm going to give a quick overview of Cliq. I'm going to intro those different developer tools. We have about 4 or 5 that we're going to talk through. I'm going to go through a bit of a demo, but I'm going to show you how to integrate with a creator app that I have made, and show you how to create a bot to interact with it and send messages on a schedule and make them all look nice. Very similar to Microsoft Teams or Slack. It's internal collaboration for your organization. It is the central hub. A lot of meetings happen on Cliq, but more than that, it can be a tool to automate processes for your members of your organization. And those tools really come into play with integration and just automating different tasks. All right, so these are the tools that we're going to be talking about today. I'm going to go a little quickly through each of them, since I do want to get to that demo and kind of build something for y'all as like a finished thing. So we have bots, flash commands, message actions, functions, schedulers, and databases. I'm going to go through each one of those now. So before I get into each specific one, we're going to be seeing this a little bit later, but these are 2 tools that are within each of those tools that you can use to build messages that Cliq will then send either in a channel or in a DM. These can be either the message builder, so if you're just sending a message in a channel, or if you want a function to return a form for some input from a user, we can also just have this drag and drop interface in that form builder. And I'll kind of show these in the demo when we get there. All right, message actions is what we're going to go over first. We're going to kind of go in the order of least involved coding-wise to most involved. So message actions, the standard ones you probably know: copy, paste, forwarding messages. So these are additional things that we can create to perform actions either on a specific message or on a list of messages. So this is kind of what it looks like when you make one. They can have different access levels. So if you need an admin message action, so if you have a database either in Creator or a specific sheet that you only want your team leads or admins to see, you can have this be the team access level and see and just have that be scoped to that specific team. And then we also have these checkboxes for if you want to allow multiple messages to be selected for this message action. This is the different type of content that we can kind of have available to us when we create our message actions. So whether that is just copying the content of a message to a database, or you want to kind of move the attachment that is sent within a message to another place. If you want details of the user, mentions, chat, we have a bunch of different information that we have access to when we use these message actions. All right, so the next one that we're going to look at is flash commands. Flash commands are really powerful because they can be executed from any channel, chat window. All you have to do to invoke them is put a / and then the name of that command. The execution handler is going to be where the real power comes into play, because that's going to be where we write the code to build our action upon that. So some built-in / commands that you might be aware of is the /pin, unpin for Cliq, the mute and the feedback and the mail. These are all built in to I believe, every Cliq account. And then the suggestion handler is how we're going to kind of, as it mentions, prompt the user for what to input, because we can also accept arguments. So we can have a, for the example that I have down there, /mute, with the -h, that denotes I want to mute this for 3 hours. So that's kind of how options and arguments work within those / commands. And then this is kind of, they all have a very similar look and feel when you're creating them. But with each one, I think I have another slide. Yeah. So when we scroll down and we're creating this, this is where we can define our different options. So that -h you'd put right there, and then you give it a little bit of a description so it can tell the user, hey, this is what this means, and this is how I want you to input the following after this space. Next one we're going to talk about is not really, a tool in itself, but it's going to be how we're going to empower those buttons and those forms that are sent in messages or when one of those forms is submitted within Cliq. So these functions, we've done any coding at all. The functions are reusable pieces of code that we can use throughout our Cliq instance for those buttons and those forms. And then, so button functions, so if we have a button within a message, we only have an execution handler, but if it's within a form built from that form builder, we can do things on submission of that form. We can do things when a specific field is inputted, and we can even make fields dynamically change as they're filling out the form. So it is more interactive, maybe not as long, not as clunky, and we can change that form as the user goes through it. All right, this one surprised me whenever I first realized that it was a feature in Cliq. Cliq has built-in cloud storage, so if you have a relatively small amount of columns that you need in a database, you can have it right inside Cliq. And even when you create this, we have code snippets that are auto-generated that you can just plug into your functions or / commands, whatever you need. It is auto-generated for you. I will say it does need to be a relatively low column database because we only have 5 different data types to choose from, and you can only use 5 fields of each data type. So you can have 5 text fields, 5 number fields, but you can only have that fixed amount. But even with that being said, this is a really handy tool to just have quick data in and out for uses within those different functions. And then, as I promised, I'm not lying, we have code snippets for those databases. I just wanted to give you a little bit of an insight. Schedulers, another great tool. So if we need to send out, let's say, a survey at the end of each week saying, how did the team lead perform this week, or however you want, we can define actions based on a schedule, whether that be a weekly schedule, a daily schedule that, goes at a certain time at 7 p.m., or even like a monthly. We're going to do week 1, week 4. We can define those different schedules as we see fit. But this is really powerful when used with those built-in databases, because you can just plug those snippets right in to the scheduler and do whatever you need to do there. All right, bots. One of the most powerful tools because we have so many different options that we can do. We can add bots to channels. We can have them participate in those channels. So we can see there's a participation handler that we can write code specifically to do that. And so incoming webhook, which we're going to be using in the demo in a little bit, whenever the bot is mentioned, that's what you'll use the code that for. But we have so many different options for utilizing the power of bots within channels, because you can't add bots to DMs. But the message handle is also very useful if you are interacting in a DM with that bot. So if you're using Cliq with Zoho Desk, you can go to the bot and you can say, what are my open tickets for the day? And it'll say, these are your open tickets. Here's a link to those tickets. And that's just an example of something that can be done and not super difficult. Before we get into the demo, just the screen of how you would create a bot. And then if you want to disallow it from being added to any channels, just an added layer of security in that, right? We can, disallow them from being added to channels if we want that. And then I think we are perfect on time. So we're going to make something. If we go over here, I've done a little bit of setup beforehand. And so what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be adding on to a creator app that I have made to track lunch feedback. So if we're using Caterer or we, get different suggestions of DoorDash, whatever that is, that's kind of the angle that we're looking at today. I figured it was broad enough. People like lunch. So, and we're about to go to lunch. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to walk through kind of the structure of this app so you know and understand what's happening when we make our Cliq bot. So it's very, what we need to know for these purposes is there's a schedule. I have a meal scheduled for today. And then on the back end, I have a custom schedule in Creator to either send out a morning message to our Cliq bot and then a lunch feedback at 2 p.m. each day to collect that feedback. So I'll go through how to integrate that with the Cliq bot now. So what we're going to go over is go over to Cliq. Going to click our icon, go to bots and tools, and we'll just call this lunch feedback. I'll just make this the organization level. And then I'm going to allow that participation because I can, I want this to be sent to our kind of like either if it's an office channel, specific teams, whatever it is, I want it to be able to send messages. But for our purposes, we don't need it to listen. We just need people to interact with it. So we're going to keep that there. And then the statuses, I didn't talk about this, but it's just kind of, your custom status in Cliq. These are different options if you want to just cycle through. Not necessary, but these are just the pre-built ones. So we'll go ahead and click Save Bot. And then, like I mentioned, we have our different handlers. We'll go down into the incoming webhook handler. And then, actually, before we do that, I want to make sure we modify our creator code. So once we have created our bot, we can just click on it, and we have already our API endpoint right here so that we can utilize that incoming webhook endpoint. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our creator app. We're going to go first to our morning message. And this is a very simple function. All it's doing is it's doing a couple fetches, getting if there's breakfast, if there's lunch, and then kind of putting that into a map for our API call. We just made a new bot, so I will put that in there. And then the only other piece that we will need to integrate is this line right here is the Z API key. So we'll go back over to Cliq and go down to the webhook tokens. And then I'll just need to verify that I am who I say I am. And then for this purposes, I'm going to generate a new key. And I'm going to rename it Zoho Demo. And so you can rename these different keys for different purposes. You get how many times they've been invoked and the last time it was invoked. But I'm just going to copy that over, put this into my map. I'm going to click update. I'm going to do this for both because I want to showcase both of these. Put this over here. All right. And then the real fun starts. All right. So we'll go back into Cliq now that we have everything set up in Creator properly. We're going to go into that incoming webhook handler. And we want to define messages for that morning message and that lunch message. And we can do this very easily, like I mentioned earlier, with that message builder. So we have a few different themes to choose from. I'm going to choose the modern inline just so we have a little bit of a border around it. And then what we can do is just say, good morning. And then for our content, I'm going to use a little bit of the markdown syntax. Say, here are the meals for today. And then we're going to put breakfast here. And then put lunch. And then I'm just going to make a new line so it's a little bit more spaced out. And then I'm going to add a couple buttons to make this a little bit more of a dynamic thing, or not as dynamic, but we're going to have one be directing to the meal calendar. And then we'll just make that green. And then one for the actual reviewing of the meal. So we'll have those two buttons. And then we can just go over to that deluge script. We can say, all right, this looks good. Take this over. And then if you saw in the Creator app, I had a parameter called message type. So this is how we're going to differentiate the type of message that we put into the channel. So we'll put in if params.get message type equal to breakfast. There. We'll say this is the morning message. And then we'll paste in this. And then because we're in if statements, we'll just define our response beforehand so we don't get a scoping error. Return response. And then so we have our meals for the day, lunch and breakfast. So we'll need to add in those parameters that we're passing. So add in breakfast. And then after this, we will add in params.get lunch. Now we should see our message being passed. There we go. Now we have a message being passed. We'll grab our schedule. And then we'll add this into our URL. And then we'll do this one more time. And then, unfortunately, we are out of time, so we can't do the other message type. But if we do this, we can see that now our meal calendar is directing, I made it the other button. Our calendar is directing to that schedule. But that will be the end of my presentation. Thank you, everybody, for your attention.